Welcome to the Week in Review, the show that brings you up to date on the week that was. Here are the top stories. Moody's downgrades Indian banks even as SBI reports rise in bad loans. Kingfisher Airlines cancels flights and asks for rescue. And industrial output falls to a 2-year low. We start with the troubles for India's banking industry. With economic conditions worsening, it has received a downgrade from a leading rating agency. On Wednesday, Moody's Investor Service cut its forecast for the Indian banking sector from stable to negative. It said lower growth was hurting asset quality and profitability. The agency also added that government borrowing was eating into funds for private borrowers. According to Moody's, a negative outlook means volatility and uncertainty. It says the effects of the slowdown will become apparent over the next 1.5 years and that banks would be forced to hike their provisioning during this fiscal and the next one. And even as Moody's delivered its verdict on India's banks, the country's biggest lender reported its quarterly numbers. State Bank of India reported a 12.36% growth in net profit for the second quarter to 2,810 crores. That was on a 28% increase in net interest income to 10,420. Even better, its net interest margin jumped to a record 3.79% compared to 3.43%. On the downside, its non-performing assets have increased to 2.04% from 1.7% in the year-ago period. In other news, Indian IT giant Tata Consultancy Services has bagged a mega deal in the UK. On Wednesday, it announced its fully owned subsidiary Diligenta had won a $2.2 billion contract with financial services firm Friends Life. It will come into effect on the 1st of March next year. And it's been a bad week for Kingfisher Airlines. On Monday, the cash-strapped carrier decided to begin cancelling dozens of flights until the 19th of this month. And on Tuesday alone, it stopped running 50 flights. These included major routes out of big cities like Mumbai, Delhi and Bangalore. The move was a last-ditch measure to save some money. Kingfisher is already defaulting on payments to oil companies and is falling behind on paying salaries. By Friday, there was a glimmer of hope for the airline, with authorities broadly agreeing to a rule change that could throw it a lifeline. Mint has learned the government has agreed in principle to allow foreign airlines to invest in India's domestic carriers. The Union Cabinet is likely to consider the issue in the next 4 weeks. If it gets the green light, foreign airlines will be able to invest 24%. Still, shares of Kingfisher nosedived on Friday to finish 9.45% lower on the BSE at 19 rupees and 65 paise. In other news, the rules have become easier for one of India's most popular life insurance products. Unit-linked pension plans have been freed from the obligation of guaranteeing minimum returns of 4.5%. On the other hand, insurance firms will have to offer a capital guarantee or return on all their pension schemes. The changes to pension rules were introduced by insurance regulator IRDA. They come into effect on the 1st of December. Moving on, the gloomy outlook for India's economy has become worse. New data shows industrial output has decelerated to its lowest in 2 years. The index for industrial production nudged up a mere 1.9% in September. The revised figure for August is 3.6%. So here's how the industrial production numbers break up by sector. Factory output, which has a weightage of about 80% on the index, grew 2.1% in September. But other sectors declined. Mining plunged 6% during the month, and capital goods did even worse with a 7% decline. Meanwhile, consumer non-durables went down 1.3%. And here are some stories in brief. RBI Deputy Governor Subir Gokan says India will grow at 7.5 to 7.6% of the GDP this fiscal year. But Gokan added that rising interest rates were clearly having an impact and that the economy was slowing down. India's export continued to rise, but its trade deficit has ballooned to a 4-year high. New figures show exports for October rose 10.8% to $19.9 billion. Imports, meanwhile, increased 21.7% to $39.5 billion. That, in turn, means the country had a trade deficit of $19.6 billion during the month. India's fertilizer subsidy bill could go over budget. Mint has learned the government expects it will reach 95,000 crores for the fiscal year compared to the budgeted 85,000. Higher worldwide demand has spurred an increase in fertilizer prices. And finally, India and Pakistan have vowed to open a new chapter in their troubled relationship. Meeting for the annual SAARC summit in the Maldives on Thursday, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh said India and Pakistan had decided to resume talks. Singh also called Pakistan's Prime Minister Yusuf Raza Gilani a man of peace. Gilani in turn said a fresh round of official discussions would start in a few weeks. And that's all we have for you. Thanks for watching.